Listen closely. Do you hear that? No? Good. Because after these 3 stories, you will. Okay, guys, before I begin, I gotta give you a fair warning. This story is absolutely true, unfortunately. It is also very long. It goes back to my childhood, but it wasn't as terrifying until very recently. Now I am completely lost in fear. I am an adult man, logical and intelligent, or I'd like to believe so, sitting in my bed, scared shitless right now, goosebumps all over my body and tears of horror in my eyes. I ask for your help in explaining this horrifying thing. Caution, you'll notice that I curse quite a bit. I want you to know that what you read from now on is the situation perceived by my mind. I like to think that I am a very rational person, and I haven't been able to explain these occurrences in any natural way. Since my mom got a new job, she started making new friends. It is common in our country that friends come to each other's houses for a cup of coffee, cake, gossip, and whatnot. Few weeks into her new job, my mom made friends with this woman, Rose. She would come maybe twice a week, and they'd sit around the coffee table on our balcony and just talk. One day when I was 17, I was at the balcony with them. I'm not sure why I was there, but knowing me, I probably ran out of internet hours. Back in a day, we bought internet monthly per hour in my country, and was bored as f***. So we're sitting there. They're gossiping about who knows what, and Mom gets up to go get some cake she had baked recently. I remained sitting at the table with Rose, and that's when my life changed forever. Rose was a good-looking woman. She was about 5'6", skinny, long black hair, pearly white teeth. Attractive woman overall. So anyways, I am sitting there with her, and she turns to me. She has this creepy grin on her face. Bright red lipstick with bright white teeth underneath are just making it look more scary. Her head is moving slowly, almost as if she became a puppet. She says something in the lowest tone possible, certainly not loud enough for me to understand. "Excuse me?" I say, still not being scared, just a bit weirded out. "You ready to go now?" She said this in the voice of a child, I kid you not, like maybe an 8-year-old girl. Grin is still there. She mustered those words through her teeth, never opening the jaw. "What?" I ask, starting to get scared. "You ready?" The same thing again, only this time she pulls out an orange out of her purse. That's it. She just took the orange out and held it there. Didn't offer it, didn't eat it herself, just held the thing. At that point, I was getting scared as fuck. Thankfully, my mom came with the cake. Rose, almost as if someone pushed a button on a remote control, switched back to her normal self, putting the orange back into her purse without my mom noticing. I left the balcony creeped out, but I was 17, so I brushed it off quickly. That night, I had trouble sleeping. My room is on the first floor, and my window is at a maybe 5-foot height, so I kept looking at it, praying not to see some scary monster. I would turn in my bed constantly and look at the window maybe every 5 minutes. It was getting late, and I started to doze off, but decided to look into the window one last time. And there she f***ing was, standing in the window. Rose, just standing, looking directly at me. Moonlight was bright enough for me to see, with the same grin on her face. Lipstick was red as ever, and teeth were whiter than ever. I was paralyzed with fear. I often imagined what I'd do in situations like these, and I always had an escape plan for any hypothetical I threw at myself. But now, when this friend of my mother's was staring at me through my window at 4 a.m., just smiling, I was motionless. My mouth got dry, I got goosebumps, have them now as I type this, and I swear it became freezing in my room. Probably just the way the body reacts to shock. I finally gathered the courage to get up. I started walking towards the door. Her head was turning with me, slowly, with the grin still there. Again, it was as if she were a puppet. I wanted to scream for my parents, but knowing how tense they are, I decided not to cause panic just yet. There had to be some rational explanation, right? Knows what reason, I decided to walk to the window and ask her what the fuck her problem was. I made 2 slow steps towards it and froze. I froze because she moved. You know what her movement was? Taking the orange out of her purse. Does anyone know the record time for having goosebumps? Because they sure as shit aren't going away. Anyways, after being terrified for a minute, I decide to go on. I'm a big guy and figured I'd be able to fight her off if push comes to shove. My windows pull up to open. I pull it open maybe some 10 inches and stop. She's not moving, just holding the fucking orange and looking at me with the scariest grin you'll ever see. I stand there, she stands there. Then she starts bending. But every move she makes is so slow, so mechanical. She's bending so she can reach the open part of the window. I'm horrified. She pushes her head through it, just enough space for her head to go through. "You go with me now?" As she's saying that, in her 8-year-old voice, her hand is making its way through the crack, holding an orange. What do? What you'd do. Run. I run out of my room, screaming for my dad. My dad, being a light sleeper, he jumps out of his bed and screams back at me, asking what the hell is going on. All I can muster to say is, "Rose, window!" While Dad is putting his pants on, I run back to my room, wanting Rose to be there so he can see that I am not crazy. You know how in horror movies the person you saw is gone by the time witnesses come? Yeah, well, similar thing happened, except I caught Rose leaving. There's a house 100 yards away from mine, and it had one of those motion-activated lights. Lots of crime back home. I saw the light turn on and a glimpse of Rose disappearing behind that house. By the time Dad ran into my room, she was gone. After much talking, he decided it was just a nightmare and told me to call him only if someone physically comes into my room. "You and your imagination," he said, walking away. Needless to say, I got 0 hours of sleep that night. Nothing happened in the next few months. Rose would still come to visit my mom, but I'd make sure I wasn't there. Fuck that. As in every teenager's life, so many things were happening around me, and I forgot about the Rose incident. Then one day, I was spending my afternoon browsing internet, years before Reddit, unfortunately. I got pretty hungry, so as any spoiled child, I yelled from my room to see if my mom would come. She didn't. Oh well, tough luck. I have to go to the kitchen and make myself a sandwich. Kitchen in our house is connected to the living room, but you can't see the living room until you're at least in the middle of the kitchen. So I open the kitchen and walk in. I freeze. There it is, right there on the kitchen table, an orange. Immediate thought of that creepy night. Rose is here. I'm still motionless in my spot. A few seconds later, I realize how stupid I am for relating a common piece of fruit to a crazy window stalker. So I walk towards the table, wanting to put the orange back in the fruit cabinet. I grab the thing and hear the voice behind me. "You will have to come with me soon, you know." Child's voice. It's Rose. I produce some kind of noise resembling a scared pig about to get slaughtered. Lightning fast, I turn around, and there she is, standing in the middle of the living room. Just standing there, same grin on her face, same lipstick on her lips, teeth white as ever. Only she started tilting her head to the left a bit, in slow motion. I remember it as if it happened yesterday. Her long black hair falling down her shoulders, white summer dress, bright red shoes to match her lipstick. I forgot to mention that she was very pale. Even in the summer, she seemed to not be friends with the sun.
This added to creepiness. There's this woman who already scared the shit out of me once, standing alone in the middle of my living room, pale as a ghost, bright red lipstick and shoes, tilting her head to the side, speaking in child's voice. And then she takes an orange out of her purse, takes it out slowly, and looks at me as if she wants me to have it. Just as my self-defense mode is about to take over and either run away or tackle the crazy bitch, my mom walks in. I know it didn't happen, but it seemed like my mom brought the light into the room. I released a breath of relief. Rose, of course, went back to her normal self. They were about to go for a walk, and my mom was getting ready in her room as she was pulling her grudge shit on me.
Since my parents wouldn't believe anything I was saying about her, I wasn't sure what to do. Only thing I could do at that age is nothing, I suppose. But I swore I'd punch that woman should she ever come close to me again. A year or so had passed without any incidents, and I was getting ready to go to the United States to study in college. Since I was going to play basketball there, I had to prepare for it. I spent summer away from home, working out in a training camp in a town about 40 miles from my city. During the last night of the camp, the last incident happened. My roommate had left the camp the day before, and I had the room to myself. I was very excited about going to America in a few days and had trouble sleeping. My room had a beautiful balcony. I was on the 3rd floor of a hotel. Since it was warm, I decided to sit in the chair on the balcony for a while. I walked out, sat down, and immediately regretted it. It is really time to come now. I nearly shit myself. I mean, it's been a while since I last heard that voice, but something like that stays with you forever. I turned my head to the right, and Rose was standing on the fence of a balcony of the room next to mine. Mind you, not standing on the balcony or sitting at the table, but standing on the fence. How she was balancing, I don't know. Balcony was at least 50 feet from the ground, and she was holding the orange. Orange. Only this time, orange seemed to have been somewhat rotten, not nearly as bright as the first 3 times. I was scared that she would attempt to jump over to my balcony, as there was only few feet distance between them. I was also scared she'd die in attempt to do so, and I'd be blamed somehow. I had no idea what was going on. It really is time, you know. She said it in that childlike voice, never opening her jaw, her teeth forever clenched together, and lipstick the color of fresh blood. She seemed even paler this time, and her head was tilted to the left even more. She wore red shoes. "Do you want from me?" I screamed in desperation, angry that this woman is causing me so much distress, but also hoping that someone would hear me and come witness this crazy bitch's harassment. "I only want you to go where you belong." She said that, and again never opened her teeth. She only sprang her hand more towards me, almost offering me that semi-rotten orange. I opened the door of my room, and as I was walking in, I heard, "You will come." I slammed the door, deciding this woman was schizophrenic. I would have probably flipped out more, but I was leaving the continent in few days, at which point I was safe. Wrong. I know I have a wall of text, but this is the shortest version of these creepy events. I came to the US and have been here for 7 years now. I forgot about the incidents and went on with my life. Only time I ever thought about Rose was when talking to my mom, who said that since I left, her friendship with the crazy bitch fell apart. I was glad. Last 7 years were the best of my life. I got a bachelor's and master's degrees. I got a wonderful girlfriend. You know, life's good, man. But then, I am a big technology geek and I love Apple. Don't shoot me down for this, please. So, it was last Friday, September 21st, the release of iPhone 5. I'm in front of the store with about 50 other people. I'm maybe 15th in line.
It's raining, it's cold. I've been there for about 4 hours now. Doors finally open. We start moving in slowly. I look across the street and instantly stop. People run into my back. I can hear complaining, but it's all bouncing off of me. Across the street, I see a woman in a white dress, head tilted, holding something orangish, grin on her face, lipstick so bright red I can see it from across the street. I can't move. Someone from far in the back pushes, causing me to fall. While I gather myself, I see the woman disappearing behind the corner. I remain sitting on the ground. It was Rose. It was her, I swear. I sit there for a few minutes, get myself together, and walk in the store. No phones left. I decide to walk across the street, and there it was. At the place where she was standing, now only sits a mushed, terribly rotten orange. That's it. Just a rotten orange. I started crying. All memories came back. I thought that my whole life would consist of being stalked by some maniac. And how did she find me anyways? I spent the next few hours in a nearby coffee shop, drinking tea and reasoning how this could logically be possible. I kept no secret from my friends and family about my whereabouts. Did she stalk my Facebook? My friends? Did she travel here to harm me? What is her deal? Answering no questions I asked myself, I went home, deciding to keep it all to myself. My girlfriend noticed something was wrong with me for the next few days, but didn't push it. I figured it was all a fluke, my mind playing tricks because I was up all night before that morning. Plus, it was raining. How could I see that well? And that orange, well, that was just a coincidence. I convinced myself that I was just making it all up. So, today, a letter came. I get a lot of mail, so it's not that out of the ordinary. But there was this envelope with no return address. I opened it and immediately was shocked. I was holding a Polaroid. In it, there was me standing in line in front of the store last Friday, only the picture was taken by the person behind me. It was taken at the moment I was looking across the street. I can tell because I could see the horror on my face. On the back of the photo, there were a few words written with a black pen. You come with me now. I dropped the picture and started crying like a baby, like really crying my ass off. My girlfriend found me in our room, curled up on bed, still crying. She was terrified that maybe someone close to us had died, since she's never seen me let a single tear before. I had to tell her. I started telling her the story, leaving most details out so I could get to the point quicker. As I was talking, she was getting more and more pale. She never said a word. I finished my story, and she was pale as ghost, not moving. Then she asked a question that honestly caused me to almost faint. She said, "This woman, did she happen to, hold an orange?" I froze. She started crying like I've never seen her cry before. We had a long talk that night, and her story would require another wall of text. Honestly, I am tired from typing this much, and I'm pretty sure nobody will be willing to read this much. I'm also lost, terrified, confused. But if someone does read this, I'll write the rest. I'll write in hope that someone can offer a solution and an answer, maybe. Currently, we are both scared, not knowing what to do next. Police is an option, but what do we tell them? I don't know, man. I'm scared for mine and her well-being. Help me.
Blake and I hadn't spoken in almost 17 years. He was the older one, 6 years older than me. He always treated me like a kid. And our parents, well, how should I put it? I think he hated them. When our father died, Blake said flat out that he wouldn't come to the funeral. He didn't want to hear about any of it. He screamed at our mother, and he told me to go to hell too, for always taking our parents' side, even though, according to him, they didn't deserve it. I was angry with him for a long time. When Blake turned 18, he left home, and I was left alone with our mother. Her condition slowly got worse. I took care of her for 10 years, and when I was 22, she died too. It was horrible. I loved my parents, and losing both of them pulled me into a deep, dark place. But the worst part was Blake's behavior. When I called him to tell him that our mother had died, he only said she deserved it. I was furious with Blake. He didn't even come to her funeral. I couldn't reach him afterward either. Maybe that was for the best. It would have been nothing but arguing and chaos anyway. But when I was at the lawyer's office, handling our parents' will, Blake showed up. I snapped. I went after him like a madman. I insulted him in every way I could right there in the lawyer's office. I threw everything I had at him, asking how he could be such an asshole. Our parents had raised us properly. They had done everything for us, and this is who he turned out to be? Blake didn't react to any of it. He was completely indifferent to my insults. He said he wasn't there for the money or our parents' estate. There was only one thing he cared about: selling the house we grew up in, selling it to someone who would promise to tear that filthy place down to the ground. That's when I completely lost it and attacked him. We got into a violent fight. The police showed up, and yeah, the whole situation turned out pretty ugly. But that was a long time ago. The house was sold, and Blake disappeared. I thought I would never hear from him again. I didn't even think when my phone rang. I was waiting for a package anyway, so I assumed it was the courier or something like that. But when I picked up, a familiar voice spoke on the other end. "Hey, little brother," Blake said. Even after all these years, my stomach clenched. A whole world, a whole life I thought I had left behind came crashing back. Hearing Blake's voice through the phone made everything echo inside me. I talked to Blake then. Part of me felt like I should just hang up and tell him to go to hell, but he was my brother. Maybe it was time to forgive him after all these years. 6 months passed. Blake and I talked every week. You could say he'd grown up. Well, maybe. I'm not sure. Talking to Blake brought up a side of our parents I had never known. To them, I had always been their sweet little Max. They loved me. They took care of me. In my memories, Blake had received that same love. Our family had been a decent, honest, loving home. But Blake remembered things differently. When he first told me, I thought he was losing his mind again, trying to drag our parents' names through the dirt. But he insisted they had starved him, that they had done terrible things to him. He said there were times they locked him in the basement for days, tied him up, and wouldn't even let him use the bathroom, so he had no choice but to soil himself. And if that wasn't enough, they punished him constantly. Our mother beat him with a leather belt almost every day. Our father preferred to choke him until he passed out. I didn't believe him, not until, during a video call, he showed me proof. His back, legs, and arms were covered in old scars, long marks like he'd been whipped. One of the joints on his index finger was missing. He said our father had cut it off with pruning shears when he was around 10 years old. Blake was a tortured man with a tortured soul. And finally, I understood why he hated our parents so much. But my own world was turned upside down too. The people I loved, the people whose absence still hurt like hell, had treated their other, older child like monsters. How could I not have noticed any of it when I was a kid? My conversations with Blake didn't stop. We texted almost every day, and whenever we had time, we talked on the phone. But our childhood never came up again. Not because I didn't want to talk about it. On the contrary, I had 1,000 questions for Blake, questions that could put everything in order. Still, something inside me felt, or maybe decided, that it was better not to dig any deeper. It felt like, aside from Blake, nothing remained for me from that past. Our parents were gone.
There was no one left to ask what really happened, no one to tell me whether Blake was telling the truth. I have to admit, that was what held me back the most. What if Blake was lying? 17 years is a long time. I had no idea where he'd been or what he'd done. He said he had lived in South Korea for a while. He'd had a family, but things hadn't worked out, and he was divorced now. He had a 14-year-old daughter. He even showed me a picture of her. But still, I don't know. What if he was lying? Why had our parents never hurt me? I couldn't hide my doubts forever. During one of our conversations, Blake asked why I'd been acting so strange lately. So I told him everything I felt and everything I was thinking. Surprisingly, Blake didn't get angry or defensive. Maybe it was because he was almost 50 years old now, not the furious teenager who once hated our parents. Blake didn't explain any of it. He didn't argue or try to justify himself. He just said he wanted to come and see me. That caught me off guard. He told me he was sick. He hadn't wanted to worry me, but there were problems with his heart. He wanted to see me while he still could, and to tell me everything in person, to explain why our parents locked him in the basement for days and what they had done to him there beyond the torture. I agreed. I can't even describe what I felt in that moment. Finding out the truth about your family at 42 years old, what is a person supposed to say? What are they supposed to feel? Blake booked a flight for 2 weeks later, and he asked just one thing of me, to pick him up at the airport. When the day came for me to go pick up Blake, everything hit me at once. Emotions I'd never felt before swirled inside me. I was afraid of meeting the brother I hadn't seen in nearly 20 years, the brother I'd never had an easy relationship with. At the same time, a childlike excitement burned inside me because it felt like Blake and I had never been this close before. I spent the entire morning pacing around the apartment, restless and on edge. My wife and kids were already going crazy from it. They had been for days, so eventually they told me to just go already and head to the airport. I had plenty of time. During the whole drive, I kept running scenarios through my head. What would I say when I finally saw Blake after all these years? How would I greet him? What would he tell me about our childhood? What did he know about our family that I didn't? I felt childish, yet all I could think about was what was going to happen. I was already waiting at the airport. According to the board, Blake's plane had landed. There had been a delay earlier, but thankfully it arrived on time in the end. I stood at the exit, nervous, waiting to catch my first glimpse of him. And when I did, that stubborn young man I hadn't seen in nearly 20 years, the one I'd last met in a fight so violent I ended up in the hospital, was now walking towards me in the body of an old man. He wasn't elderly, not really, but the years and everything he'd been through were etched in his face. Max. Blake stopped in front of me at the airport exit. It's been a long time, little brother. I thought I was going to cry right there. Nostalgia, emotion, everything hit me at once, harder than the flower pot Blake had smashed over my head back in the lawyer's office. But I didn't cry. What kind of sight would that be, an old man breaking down in the middle of an airport? I swallowed hard, held back my tears, shook Blake's outstretched hand, and patted him on the shoulder. "That's for sure, Blake," I said with a faint smile. Then I took his bag and we headed out to the parking lot. We talked the whole drive home. Nothing important, just talking, like two brothers finally acting like brothers. Blake was different from how I remembered him. He'd become an older man, calm and cautious. If he'd been like this when he was younger, maybe it wouldn't have taken so long for us to find our way back to each other. "Max," Blake said after a short stretch of quiet driving, "could you take me to our old house now?" "Right now?" I glanced at him as I passed a slower truck. "Yeah, I just want to get it over with," Blake said with his voice trembling. I nodded, feeling the weight of it. "Ah, damn," I said suddenly. But Blake, I need to swing by my house first. I left my work phone there. It's really important. Sure, Max. Blake nodded tiredly. But after that, please take me to the house.
I pressed down on the gas. Our old house was far from where we were. If I went home first, I was looking at least a 5-hour drive. I parked in front of our apartment building and jumped out of the car. "I'll wait here," Blake called after me. "You'll be faster without me." Okay, I said, confused. "But there's an elevator. You could come up." No, Blake waved it off. "We'd just get stuck. I want to see the house today." I nodded and rushed inside, up to the loft, straight to the apartment. My wife and kids weren't home, either grocery shopping or at the nearby bakery. They'd said they were picking up a cake for Blake's arrival. I scribbled a quick note saying we'd be home late, grabbed my work phone from the kitchen counter, and hurried back toward the elevator. My phone rang in my hand, and I immediately looked at the screen, hoping it was something important. It was Blake. The phone I'd brought with me was my personal one, not the work phone. I'd mixed them up. The work phone had been with me the entire time. "Blake?" I answered. "I'm coming. I'll be right there." "Where?" Blake asked, sounding exhausted. "Max?" "Down at the car, with you," I said, confused, as I stepped into the elevator. "Max," continued Blake, his voice tense, "I couldn't come to see you. I got sick this morning. I'm at the hospital. I've been calling you for hours." "What?" I said, stunned. "Blake, Max never got on the plane," said Blake sharply. "Blake, is this some kind of joke?" I said as I stepped out of the elevator. "You're sitting in my car. I'm coming right now, and then we're heading to Mom and Dad's house." "Max, listen to me," Blake coughed into the phone. "You can't take him back." "What?" I cut in, panic rising. Blake kept coughing, unable to continue. There was a clattering sound, like something being knocked over. "Max," he said again, his voice strained. "Max, my heart. Please, promise me. Promise me you won't take him back. He can't go back." Then there was a heavy thud on the line. "Blake?" I said, terrified. "Blake, are you okay?" There was no answer. I could hear voices in the background, doctors maybe. I heard equipment rattling and people shouting urgently. The call disconnected. My hands were shaking as I stepped outside through the front door. Despite the winter cold, I felt like I was about to burst into flames. I stared at my car, frozen in place. Blake was sitting inside. He was staring out the window, his eyes dull and unfocused. He just sat there, completely still, not even blinking. I stood there, unable to move, and then I saw his hand. The finger joint wasn't missing. The realization washed over me, cold and absolute. If that wasn't Blake sitting in my car, then who was it? And why did he look exactly like him?
This happened to me long ago, but I can still recall that day as clear as day. It's a bit long, but I'll try to simplify as possible. When I was young, maybe 5 or 6 years of age, my family moved over to Hungary from the UK due to my father's job requirements. In the early 1990s, when the dissolution of the Soviet Union had turned the Socialist Republic to liberal democracy, allowing large corporations finally to enter the country and establish a foothold in the land of opportunities. My father was one of those companies. We bought a large mansion-like house in Budapest. The house was large, with 4 rooms and a large front and backyard. I was told the house was considerably cheap compared to its large size. Our parents thought it was because the country was under communist rule that everything was so cheap. few months had gone by and me and my sisters were getting settled in nicely. It was great having a huge backyard and school was fun. We were sent to one of those newly established American international schools, the ones that have Christian backings. Anyway, I was not really into religion and found the teachings of the Bible boring at most, but at least the hamburgers and pizzas were cheap. More weeks went by and we were now completely at home in our new house. But then, things got weird really fast. I shared my room upstairs with my sister, and we would talk ourselves to sleep every night. But one night, we were both really tired from some vigorous backyard playing, so we fell asleep almost instantly that night. I was woken in the middle of the night, looking for a glass of water. As I awoke, I took a glimpse towards my sister's bed that was on the other side of the room. Then I saw it. In the dark room, on her bed, my sister was sitting up. I couldn't see her properly, only her shadowy silhouette. Before I could say anything to her, she lay back down. But it wasn't a normal laying down. She just slammed into her bed like you would when you're frustrated. Odd, I thought, but didn't give much thought to it. My need for a glass of water was a higher priority. But just before I got up from my bed, I saw her sit up again. She just sprung up. It was too weird and I froze. Then she slammed herself back down into her bed and again slammed down into her bed, again and again. The bed shook, making squeaky noises every time she slammed into her bed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just lay still in my bed looking at my sister's shadow just sit up and lay back down again. I don't know how long it had been, seemed like hours, but she stopped. She sat there, very still. Dark silhouette now seemed even darker and black. Then she slowly turned her head towards my bed. So I shut my eyes as hard as I could, hoping that this was all a bad dream. Moments pass, and I mustered the strength to open my eyes. I looked towards to my sister's bed and was met with a dark, blacked-out face fully turned towards me. Panic started to set in, my heart pounding mad, and I wanted to scream, but my mouth was frozen shut by fear. Cold sweat built up and silence filled the room. Fear was overwhelming and I couldn't stand it. I had to do something because I thought I would suffocate at this rate. I don't know where I got the strength to do so, but I rushed out of my bed and ran towards her. I came up to my sister so fast, but the next minute I saw my sister laying down in her bed fast asleep, the dark shadow gone like mist. I frantically shook her awake. My sister woke up to my cries and shaking, confused and half asleep. I told her what I saw and that we should probably make our way to our parents' room. But my sister laughed it off, saying it's not funny and she doesn't believe in supernatural stories. I had no choice but to go back to bed, as I wasn't about to let anything happen to my little sister. That night I couldn't sleep and watched my sister through the rest of the night. Thankfully, nothing happened through the rest of that night, but I couldn't shake off that eerie feeling that something was amiss. After that night, everything seemed out of place. The house that we were comfortable to run around in didn't look the same. There was something about it that gave me the creeps, and soon I was nagging my parents to move out. Of course, they just shrugged it off and said I watched too much sci-fi and horror movies, and they were getting to my head. Days passed, and I was losing sight about the eerie feeling of the house. Life seemed to fall back into place, and I almost forgot about that incident. But they were far from over. I woke up one morning from screams by my mother, who just came out from her room that morning. She was looking at me. I was hanging from the side of the second-floor staircase, upside down like a bat. As soon as I came to my senses, my legs gave away and I would have fell head first if not for my father, who had rushed out hearing my mother's screams. My father grabbed hold of my legs just as they were giving away. I was diagnosed of somnambulism, or sleepwalking. The doctor said it was common in children and attributed them to sleeplessness and nightmares. My parents banned me from watching horror movies or any kind of contents that may fuel my nightmares. But after that day, I kept on sleepwalking and every time would wake up hanging upside down from something. My parents were highly religious and became worried about it. Talk of exorcism and demonic possession were quickly brought up, and I remember a priest visited us not long after. The priest first visited our room. He was in there for a good hour or so and cautioned us not to enter until he deemed it safe. When he came out, there was an uneasy expression on his face. He started looking around and muttering something, maybe Latin, I wasn't sure. Then he eventually made his way downstairs again. Then he stopped and looked up. He was standing, looking up at the ceiling with a face expression that chilled me. Something about his expression just said supernatural. The ceiling was located right beneath where our room was. Then he motioned my parents over and spoke to them for some time. My parents' faces turned white, and we all moved out and rented a hotel room that day. The next day, my parents hired construction workers to tear down the ceiling located under our bedroom. They found a small trap door in the ceiling, and when they opened it, they found a small bag of bones from some small animal, maybe chicken or something. But also inside the small compartment was a small doll made of the same bones from the bag, hanging by a small thread upside down. Needless to say, my parents sold the house and we moved out immediately. We stayed in Hungary for another year and after that returned to the UK. My parents' religious belief and faith had tripled after that. As for me, I had strayed alien to Christianity. I'm not an atheist and I still believe in God and all, but churches make me uneasy for some reason. I stopped going when I entered college and never been to one ever since. But that incident in Hungary had stopped me from not believing altogether. Something supernatural walks among us on this plane of existence, I'm sure of it. My recent encounters has also led me to believe in the supernatural, but that is for another story.